Hey everybody, it's Todd Dills, your host for this edition of the Overdrive Radio podcast for January 7th, 2022. First podcast of the year, and like so many this season, I've been a bit under the weather this week. So here's a formal apology for the condition of my voice. Thankfully though, you won't have to hear it much on this week's podcast, given we're going to let the music do most of the talking. Likewise, a conversation recorded just before Christmas, well before whatever crud I'm dealing with now did a number on my vocal pipes too. We're going to run through my Overdrive colleague Long Haul Paul Marhoefer's new record, released late last year, Corn Belt Cafe. It's a veritable journey of a record recorded almost entirely in live takes in studio with a principal partner in Michael Ronstadt on the cello. Here's a bit of a sample of the kind of earthy feel the pair were able to evoke on it, among its many attributes. It features contributions from songwriters other than Paul, too, as you'll hear in our conversation about a couple of those, plus co-writes with trucking fellow travelers Ken Shoestring Waugh, who sadly passed away last year, as well as Alabama-based J.D. Haynes. All in all, I feel like Corn Belt Cafe is something of a first for Marhoefer in that the record and its 12 tracks have a cohesiveness that's maybe less apparent on some of his prior efforts. A throwback, say, to an era in which the album was the ultimate product for any musical act. You won't get to do it here, but Corn Belt Cafe, for my money, might best be heard straight through, start to finish. Find an embed of the record in the post that houses this podcast at overdriveonline.com/overdrive-radio. When we talked, Marhoefer was fresh off of a trip to the main headquarters of the annual Wreaths Across America operation, and his involvement this year was as entertainment for the legions of OTR operators donating their time to the nationwide delivery of wreaths placed on the graves of veterans. It's a mammoth operation. Marhoefer was there in the state of Maine the weekend ahead of the principal wreath-laying event for Friday and Saturday performances with Michael Ronstadt and Marhoefer's wife, Denise, in tow. And well, let's say it left a big impression.
It just amazed me, the level of commitment that these companies had for their veterans. Tyson fed everyone there, Todd. It's just unbelievable. They had a cooking team that was comprised of drivers and their wives. So for that week that the drivers were coming in and loading, Tyson was providing food for all those drivers, and their cooking team, they were just some great guys who had driven for Tyson a long time. I think most of them were veterans. And I did not serve in the armed forces. I came of age in 1978. But even, whether you served or not, I do see merit in honoring the sacrifice that people made to secure this country. So, yeah, it was a wonderful time. Don Queenie was great. He was the kind of the point man for the transportation side of Wreaths Across America. It's an interesting thing that organization started because this wreath company in Columbia Falls, Maine, run by a gentleman by the name of Wooster, they had several extra wreaths, and they got a hold of Arlington Cemetery and asked, may we donate these to your cemetery? And then I didn't know how much a product of the digital age Wreaths Across America really is. There was it snowed one of those years, and this picture of these wreaths on these tombstones in Arlington in the snow just exploded. And that's how this organization grew. It grew from a viral photograph and all these wonderful volunteers that have, now they're up to 3.5 million wreaths.
Yeah, and going to like 3,000 some odd locations that are basically veteran cemeteries all across the country. It's wild.
Yep, the country and the world and at sea. They actually, I think they even go as far as Normandy, places like that.
If you've never been a part of it, search Wreaths Across America at overdriveonline.com for more of the effort's long history, including a close look this year at a wreath-laying event far from the main one at Arlington National Cemetery, way out in California's San Joaquin Valley. Okay, we're going to dive into Marhoefer's new record, Corn Belt Cafe, just after this brief message from Overdrive Radio's sponsor, so keep tuned.
First Guard provides commercial truck insurance to leased owner-operators done right, as we've done for more than 80 years. We provide physical damage and non-trucking. Many companies make you pay up to 6 months of insurance premiums up front, but not First Guard. We bill monthly, so you get quality insurance without needing to pay a lot of cash up front. Go to firstguard.com. That's one-ST guard.com. First Guard. We speak trucker. Let's talk.
Well, back in the early 80s, I thought it was the late 70s when we did the recording back. The more I think about it, it was the early 80s. I was at a place in southern Illinois, down in the flatlands of Illinois, and I think the name of the restaurant was the Corn Belt Cafe. Like, Norman Rockwell, Middle America, and it was Labor Day. I know it was Labor Day. I was working, and I think I was in a straight truck then, and I stood on the, right in front of the counter. There was like a worn spot in the linoleum, and like standing in the blackness of that worn spot in the linoleum, and it was a wonderful meal, and I just, it was just like one of these moments when you're surprised by a sense of bliss, and I felt like that standing on that worn out hole. I had entered the portal of some oneness, and that's something you don't go around and talk about when you're a straight truck driver from Indiana, because people might accuse you of being an English major or possibly a Democrat. So I just kept to myself for many years, and there was such a, these old cafes. They were really like matriarchal institutions. They were, usually like there would be some middle-aged woman holding court, and there a lot of banter and back and forth, and so I was taking Denise to one such place and bragging about it, and we got there, and it was abandoned and dilapidated, and so the album sort of became an elegy to those sort of places, because you had maybe what sort of propelled my sense of, there is a sadness in this album, but just the agency to stop when you want to stop. I almost wonder if those places, if that was the final death knell, like people can't stop like they used to stop. People can't linger and talk like they used to. It's probably the domain of of old men to wish things were to maintain that things were better now, or better then than they are now. I will argue, I will contest that some things were better. Like, for example, the dial radio. I mean, the old school AM/FM dial radio. It was never improved upon. Now you've got all these buttons and gadgets, and there's nothing like just turning a dial to the station you want.
Right.
And but anyways, I'm rambling here, Todd.
I wrote this song in 1978, and it never went longer than a minute. Freight runners and farm hands and the mothers of old men who hold on your coffee for half a day. See, one thing's for sure, you're us and we're them. Life wears like the linoleum of this Corn Belt Cafe. Life wears like the linoleum of this Corn Belt Cafe.
But it's sort of an elegy to a sort of place that no longer exists.
Right. And I mean, that kind of brings to my mind what I kind of feel like is the quintessential. It might be my favorite song on this record, but I also think it's kind of the quintessential evocation of that theme too, which is the song Chevrolet Jesus.
You know, Chevrolet Jesus is. I was first introduced to that song by a Muscle Shoals songwriter. That is not an original song, but it seemed to fit so well within that theme.
Right.
And the gentleman that wrote that song, a guy by the name of John Crossland, who builds motors for Toyota in Huntsville, Alabama, and he's an unbelievable songwriter. But he doesn't want anything to do with going out there and pushing his stuff. He only sang that song one time in public, and in Huntsville at a bar, and a drunk lady asked if he was some sort of communist, and he never sang it again publicly. So it's almost like I felt an obligation to that song, because it really, I mean, when you think about the toll that a Gold Star family must go through. And the character in this song, he lost his son in the Middle East. He lost his job to China. I mean, that guy's out there, Todd, and now he's working in a diner. He's out there. I guarantee you he's out there.
When I was much younger, I dreamed like thunder. I wore my heart on the sleeve of my shirt. I met Mary Weston, a diner in Preston. When she waited at my table, boys, I fell in love. I was just 19 when I bought her that wedding ring. We said our vow in her daddy's church. By day I turned hand tools, by night I took trade school. For 25 years I had union scale work, and I used to have faith in a Chevrolet Jesus, an American promise as big as the sky. And I worked all those years. What I got honest. I was red, white, and blue. It's the 4th of July.
It's a guy looking back on what was and the way he used to feel about things and think about things, and there's that kind of that same sense of, like, I don't know, certainly of feeling better in a previous age, when you used to believe certain things and used to feel like everything was going to be okay, and ultimately it turns out not to be so. But
I'm glad you like that song. I'm working. We're going to try to get a video out on there because the problem with the way we've been rewired, we hardly will. Nobody just listens to an album anymore. You've got to see the videos with that, and so we're hoping to give that song some video support going forward. But I think you nailed something that I did not previously think of. The song does, or maybe the album does. There is like a fundamental shift in the way we see the world after something like that happens, after what that character went through in that song. And maybe we're all dealing with this, where there's certain things we took for granted that just are no more. And as I say these things, I realize that somebody sort of challenged me a while ago. It was Jimmy Mack. I've got a song which is an elegy to the all-night radio format that we're coming out on our next album. I think he said maybe it's just I don't know if I can get the quote quite right, but he said, that's just a way of expressing regret that we're no longer young.
November, a newborn baby was a star of my crown. I named him Carver after my father. Took the old man to Jenkins, he bought the whole house around. Taught him to stand tall, how to play baseball. That third chapter lesson from the old book of John. He had a smile like his mother, he was a good man to others. Oh, I raised him up proud, my American son. And I used to have faith in a Chevrolet Jesus, an American promise, as big as the sky. And I done all that work. What I got honest. I was red, white, and blue as the 4th of July.
But when you look at how rare sound once was, and some of these all-night jocks like Dave Nemo, they were curators. They were actually, musicologists in their own sense of this subgenre of trucking music, and they were bringing out these rare cuts of music, and somehow just the availability of just songs that the digital age gave us, and a whole other host of factors, sort of made that the relevance of that format go by the wayside. But it was very communal and in a sense, and there's something about the communal aspect of those old cafes that has also gone by the wayside. And then it's so that what you're left with, circling back to Chevrolet Jesus, is that character who's he's just trying to get through the day.
Regret that one is no longer young anymore. I mean that's an interesting way of looking at a good bit of some of the stuff on this record. It makes me immediately think of your a 10-minute song with that tells a story that probably is as long as that sounds. It's quite a tale. A familiar story to me, because I think a good bit of this story in a different form, of course, and more true to some of the facts of something that is in your past for sure. are told here, but there's quite a lot of that sort of sentiment in there. The song's called Greenstein.
I got laid over one Thanksgiving down at the Pompano Beach Farmers Market, Pompano Beach, Florida. There just weren't any loads to get me out of town, and there I was, stuck there. Well, I came up on some guys down there at the Pompano Beach Farmers Market. These guys were like character actors from an old Western. These were grown men who called themselves by their CB handles. Men with monikers like Fast Freddy, Wild Child, Tricky Dick, Poncho. It was Wednesday night. Dimitri's restaurant was going to be closed the next day, and the men were milling around the smoker's canopy. Fast Freddy came up and said, "Boys, tomorrow we're having a feast."
We made a decision, we no longer view these songs about in terms of what their potential radio readiness would be. We've got this format. The digital age has really kind of turned that whole paradigm on its head, and so I don't know. We were just noodling around, so yeah, we mixed a spoken word narrative with a song, and the song went 10 minutes. Still going back and forth with CD Baby. They tried to put the song up, and they only got like 3 minutes and 40 seconds of it up. We released it as a single, and I don't think they've taken it down yet. But
you totally broke the architecture of the system by trying to release a 10-minute single, huh?
yeah, I actually had to pay extra to register that one.
Wow.
10 minutes is the cutoff. But I mean, when you look at Hoss did, our former colleague, mixing these interviews and spoken word narratives with a song in his podcast, Forever is a Long Time. I really think since we're no longer bound to a 90-minute CD, I mean, there's only so much time you can put. And since radio is sadly losing in its relevance, that's the idea is how do we get on? We're not trying to get on the radio. We're trying to get on the truck driver's phone and whoever else will listen.
Right.
And if that gives them something nice to listen to while they're going down the road, then we have, maybe we're on to something.
That next day, Tricky Dick showed up. He and Fred went to Winn-Dixie, and they brought back a massive amount of food. Everyone got their fill. And there was an old man off to the side. And he hadn't said a word all day. But after we all ate, he stepped forward and spoke his piece. He told us about the golden age of trucking. He always had money in his pocket. He was young and
I'll tell you,
strong
somebody
and
else that did this that it really inspired me was Tom Russell. Tom Russell would do these wonderful, they were almost like beat poetry type recitations in the album Hot Walker, and he's got this wonderful recitation called Old America, and he talks about growing up in L.A. in the days of Charles Bukowski, and back before the big guilt set in, and what that world looked like, and what radio and music looked like then. And I was deeply affected by what Tom Russell did on that album. I still listen to that album.
You've got quite a lot of that kind of storytelling over song in this, and I think you were telling me that all this was done kind of live, even including the vocals.
Yeah, well, I think Michael's idea is he wanted these to all be what they call live recordings, in the sense that we just build out the song, and then as opposed to building a song, which that's probably the more modern technique of recording, is to build the song, where you lay down a rhythm track and then you overdub the vocals onto an existing track. That's in essence, I don't know. I don't want to disparage that means of recording, because lots of good records have been cut that way. But Michael wanted these songs to be just us just belting them out. And, there are blemishes in these songs, which I hear. I don't know, I guess it's very high-minded to say, well, that's just part of the art. But people seem to like the album. The people that listen seem to like the album. It's not, I think it held up to what we were trying to do, which was to sort of have a certain cohesiveness, a certain central idea to this batch of songs, and so it's on to the next project.
There's a certain, there's a quality to the recording, and possibly has something to do with the fact that it's all like live take. But when you describe the sense of standing in that worn out spot in the cafe, like I can kind of hear that on this record, right? Like just the quality, the earthy quality of the recording, and it sort of sounds like that, right? Like it sounds like that that idea.
He was doing that deal. Out on some back road, calling out for Lucille. Till she burn out the bearings of your own driving wheel. Now the queen of the back road gone back to Mobile. Does anybody know the name of this town? Anybody know the name of this town? I said no.
I've been the guy on the radio before, asking if anybody know the name of this town. I mean, long before GPS. Sometimes you would just run and keep going until you couldn't go anymore, and burrow into some spot somewhere. Like, as a regular route carrier, that's sort of like that gypsy trucker guy, just wanting to know what to put in his logbook. I was reading or listening. I wasn't reading. I was listening to the Odyssey back then, when I wrote that song. I might listen to the Odyssey I'm on my way to Utah we made one of these Faustian bargains with Dispatch. I'll work Christmas if you can get me home for New Year's so I can see my dad because he's not doing well. And when I get to Utah, sometimes I like to listen to the Odyssey on a LibriVox, which is all free audiobooks. But there's this part where Ulysses, he keeps washing up here and there, and he would always inquire, anybody, do you know the name of this place? Because he didn't know. And he encounters a couple nice young ladies, and he told them heaven has made my way hard. That's something Ulysses said in the Odyssey.
Right.
Like not knowing where you are, eventually life gets hard. You know, I mean, he kept washing up here and there, and you know, life had gotten hard for him. And I don't know. And I just finished reading this New York Times piece about this 62-year-old woman who wanted to hike the Appalachian Trail from the bottom to the top, and she was doing it with another lady. The lady got sick and had to go off the trail, so she decided to go solo, and she got lost, and she got off the trail, and they found her like a mile from the trail, dead of starvation, and her camp was in perfect order with detailed instructions to her husband on how to care for the cat. And that's what was, I don't know, that's what was kind of going through my head when I wrote that song. And then I was on the E-log guinea pig program, and my E-log froze up, and I had become dependent on the GPS. And I got on the CB radio. I saw some trucks going by, and asked those guys if they knew where I was. And they all spoke a different language, and they were all on a different channel.
Anyone here know who I am? Heaven has made my way hard. Heaven has made my way hard. Leave my beer to the beggar, leave my port to the bar. Heaven has made my way hard. So only right that alone I should die. Only right that alone I should die. I forsook my own mother.
You know, it kind of comes out to a little bright spot in the end, which I love the song of. I think it's the final song on the record, final full song anyway. And it's "Here Comes That Rainbow Again."
Yeah, Bill Weaver. Somehow, every now and then, Bill Weaver and I, we just fall into this artistic, creative wave. And he called me one day and asked if I would put this song on our upcoming album, and that's a Chris Christopherson song that he, you know, based on a scene from The Grapes of Wrath. And there again, yeah, that's why we wanted it to be the 12th. I think it was the 12th song, the last song before the outro.
Yeah,
it does sort of resolve itself. It's, I guess, the 11th song. So in other words, it's sort of, you know, life is dark, but hopefully there's a matriarch somewhere waiting to cut you a break. And yeah, that's kind of why we put that there. It's because you've got all this darkness bookended by Selah, the one waitress, and at the end of this journey of dark songs, you've got this waitress giving these Okie children candy at a lower price than they really were. That's a wonderful song. Christopherson did it. Johnny Cash did it. And so it was really kind of a cool thing. When Bill Weaver asked if he could sponsor that song, it was like the perfect I thought it laid in there pretty well, at least, thematically.
The scene was a small roadside cafe. The waitress was sweeping the floor. The two truck drivers drinking their coffee, and two oaky kids by the door. How much are them candies, they asked her. How much have you got, she replied. We've only a penny between us. Them's two for a penny, she lied. And the daylight grew heavy with thunder. The smell of the rain on the wind. Ain't that just like a human? Here come that rainbow again.
Overdrive Radio is a production of Overdrive, the voice of the American trucker. It's edited and produced by me, Todd Dills, with additional support from Overdrive Extra contributing writer Paul Marhoefer, who you heard today, Overdrive News editor Matt Cole, social media coordinator Holly Young, and executive editor Alex Lockie. You can find more music from Paul Marhoefer on all the streaming services or via longhaulpaulmusic.com. Until next time, keep it pro out there.
Nodded goodbye. She called, hey, you left too much money. So what's it to you, they replied. And the daylight grew heavy with thunder, with the smell of the rain on the wind. Ain't that just like a human? Here come that rainbow again. Yeah, and the daylight grew heavy with thunder, with the smell of the rain on the wind. Ain't that just like a human? Here come that rain.